Hello everyone.
Hi, hello.
Be part of
Morning.
this event,
Morning.
and I really like to congratulate Animation Express to bring this summit together. And thanks to the panelists for making the time. I know how busy it is out there, so really thankful for you guys to making your time, making yourself available. Before we go forward, I would just like to have a quick round of introduction. It would be great. We can start with Phil. So Phil, can you just a quick brief about yourself? I know the awesome work you're doing, but
thank you.
Yeah.
So thank you, Praveen. My name is Phil Stilgo. I'm the CEO of Centroid. We have a studio in London, Belgrade, and we are lucky enough to also have one in Mumbai. I predominantly work in motion capture and performance capture, which has morphed into virtual production in the last couple of years.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Welcome on board.
Thank you.
So Hans, can you just talk about yourself a little bit, just for the audience here? You're on mute, I think, Hans.
There you go. I'll unmute. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Praveen. Thanks for having me on the panel. Hans van der Sluys, Scan 360 Studios. I've been doing primarily motion capture, a lot like Phil, photogrammetry, LiDAR, and now getting into virtual production. So introducing that whole aspect to the Indian market as well slowly, and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you. Welcome on board.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So we have Shajy Thomas here from Technicolor. Hi, Shajy. Welcome on board. So I know you very well, but for the sake, for the good thing of the audience, can you give a good introduction?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me in the panel Animation Express. My name is Shajy Thomas. I head the technology for Asia Pacific for Technicolor. So mostly responsible for the technology space for brands like MPC Film, Mill, Mr. X, Animation Gaming. That's where we are. I'm based out of Bangalore, and great to be in this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Shajy. Thanks for taking the time. Finally, we have Jayant. Jayant from Famous Studios. Welcome, sir, on board.
Hi.
Quick round of introduction from you as well.
So basically, I'm the creative director at Famous Studios, and I have a division called FOA, Famous House of Artists. So we basically work a lot on TV commercials, and some part of our team works on feature films also.
All right. Thank you, Jan. Thanks for taking your time on the board. To kick off this panel discussion, my first question, I'll probably go in a kind of a circle here. So I'll start off with Phil. Phil, my first thing I would like to ask you is, like, now you worked with the Indian studios here. So I'll quickly jump into the work that you're doing with the Indian studios. And I know the kind of work which is, we have certain limitations compared to probably what you do internationally, especially when you compare with Hollywood or European markets. So how much of the technology that you have helps in kind of bridging the gaps that you probably in terms of the budgets or the schedules or the timelines? How much of the technology that you possess or what is going to be very at an advantage for these kind of work that we do in India?
Well, I think certainly from the motion capture point of view, all of the technology in the pipelines that we have are already being used in certainly in Mumbai and Hyderabad, and they're becoming very, very useful to productions. It's obviously been there's a brilliant and artistic culture of hand animation in India. You've got lovely styles. So initially, if I'm honest, it was a little bit swimming against the tide when I first came here, which was 5, 6, 7 years ago. But the last couple of years, we've really seen studios becoming much more pragmatic about our pipelines, using the motion capture from previs and using some of our VR pipelines for virtual scouting and things like that. So it feels like there's a real momentum this last year to 2 years. Obviously, COVID has kind of gotten in the way a little bit for us, so I think that slowed things down. But yeah, no, a lot of people are being very pragmatic about the technology. Budget is still a little bit of an issue, but if I'm honest with you, it's still an issue with Hollywood as well. No one seems to have an abundance of money flowing around for outsourced companies to enjoy, shall we say?
Yeah, I totally agree with you that yeah, Hollywood is not much different of late. So thanks, Phil. So I will jump on to Hans. So Hans, my point of discussion here with you is like, now, how do you see these new evolving technologies, whether it's motion capture or virtual production, or within the conventional VFX pipelines, the new technologies which are evolving? So how do you see this kind of expanding, or how you think is going to be enabling the creative people, the creative artists or the producers or directors here? How do you see this becoming an advantage, or could be a limitation? How do you want to put this together?
I feel it's a huge advantage to the directors and the creatives in the film, the gaming, the VR, AR spaces, certainly. In terms of motion capture and virtual production, camera tracking, LED walls, or green screen either. I think it's the important factor is that there's so much technology right now, and it's all coming very, very fast. So it's up to us really as the people who are introducing these technologies and running these technologies to make sure that the creatives in this country are very much aware of how to use them and what's required to use them. And this is, I think, where we all have the most work to do. Acquiring the tech is not such a big deal. If you have the money to do it, you bring it in, you set it up, and it will work. But it's then allowing the directors to understand exactly how it works. It's a very different approach for them. They will, for virtual production, for example, they have to do a lot of really complex previs, tech viz. We can talk about that later. But it's sort of putting their pipeline on its head in many ways. And then they have to be taught how to do that. They have to be informed, and we have to have workshops, and it's up to us to inform them so that they're not rejecting this stuff immediately. And sometimes technology has that way of saying, well, we have new tech, here it is, use it. But unless we don't take the time to teach them or inform them how to use it, then it may not work out. So it's really up to us, I think.
Thanks. So actually moving on from where you just left off. So Shajy, I have something, I mean, you've been exploring this, you as being a very technology heavy kind of work that you guys do. In the last few years, the accomplishments that you have done is huge in terms of whether it's data management or just the amount of assets you handle and things like that. So can you just throw some light on how you guys, how did technology really be part of the awesome work that you do? I mean, can you just throw some light in the last few years that the work you have done, how much the technology has contributed?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So it has been a unique experience. I think every year there is a new show which comes in where a director comes up with a unique requirement saying, oh, for my next movie, I want to do something very special. So that's a trigger for all of us to keep innovating new ideas how to accomplish it. So long back, probably a few decades back, when we had this challenge of moving from a single facility production environment to multi-facility, multi-geography facilities, then we had this huge challenge that how do we make our pipeline seamlessly so that any production can happen throughout the world. So there's some facility in Montreal, you have in UK, you have in Australia, and you have in India. So it was a phenomenal challenge for us. We all did a lot of work, and that was sorted through. Very recently, everywhere, if you're hearing, it's mostly virtual production, motion capture has become a norm. So and every movie, we started using it more for advantage, and that's probably is triggering out of much more faster pace. So, for example, when we started the virtual production for Jungle Book a few years back, probably the immersive technologies and game engines haven't been matured to that level. So we had to really go ahead and build a lot of things to make that happen. So, for example, Jon Favreau, he wanted to actually create an experience where if you're watching a movie, he wanted the users to forget that what you're watching is something which has been created. So he wanted to create a new experience. For Lion King, for example, it was a documentary style experience. So that challenged us in a way, saying what we create should be something which is truly believable, looks real. It shouldn't be an abstract, shouldn't be stylish. So that forced us to work on the photorealistic thing, be it the Indian jungle in for Jungle Book and being a Kenyan jungle in Lion King. So that was one of the requirement. And if you see last 3-4 years, photorealistic has become such a common thing for that. So we did explore a lot of things in the virtual production in that sense. So we have something called Genesis. Let me know if I'm talking too much because I can just go ahead and keep saying on that.
For you to share as much knowledge.
That's fantastic. So we had something called Genesis. So Genesis is our virtual production system, which is a combination and a well-integrated platform of the immersive technology, immersive media, game engine, and workflow tool. So that's where we did. So most of the directors we engage with are somebody who has a live action experience. So when Lion King, for example, Lion King has around 1,500 shots to be done, and we were all thinking that how. And if you have to do a 1,500 shots and mostly CGI, so then in the very early stage, the directors, DP, supervisors, they all have to visualize the entire series, entire shots and sequences all together. They will have to change things, try little different things all together before they get into a decision. And all these decisions, all these informations you actually get in your pre-production, all that information has to be passed through into the production and to post-production environment, which becomes a meaningful information for them. That was a challenge for us. That's when we thought that we wanted to create a virtual world which gives all the filmmakers an experience that they're kind of doing a real shoot. So pre-prod and previous, for example, if that's a foundation. So our VAD virtual art department used to create real-time assets on gaming engine. They used to bring all the assets. It used to be characters, environment, props. They will set up everything in a virtual shoot environment, and we have the directors, DPs, supervisors coming into a virtual reality shoot, and we built the tools and integrated in such a way that all of them, it was a multi device connected, so all of them can be on the same virtual environment. They can do tech scout, so they can be on the bottom, and then they can fly and teleport themselves to the top of a mountain. It will help them to block an angle, block an area where they want to have the action there. They can all change the asset. They can identify the asset, move around with the asset. They can block the camera angles. We created tools which could change the camera settings, which could change the lighting settings, and this is all real-time rendered for us. And what we also did is we integrated, so this platform was in our USD platform, USD workflow. And then we have this Tessa asset management system, which is in production. So we integrated both of them together. So assets and all the changes which actually happens on the virtual environment can be passed into a production environment, assetized there, and probably rendered in more expensive for the look dev, and vice versa. The assets from production can travel there. So that's how we started. For every new movie which we started working on, there are a lot of enhancement which kept coming in through. So that I think was a very breakthrough on that particular time, and it was quite handy when the pandemic came in. This is a tool which we could utilize effectively.
Thanks. That was really good. I mean, as I said, the awesome imagery that you guys have done, I think there's a lot of pre-production or the creative inputs along, but everything could have been materialized. If not for the technology, it wouldn't have been done as much as what we ended up seeing. So it's definitely a marvelous job you guys have done. So yeah, moving on. Thanks, Shajy. Shajy, sorry. So Jayant, I just have a quick question to you about, I mean, how do you see the especially the VFX pipelines that have been used of late. How do you see this pipelines emerging in the next few years or decades? Do you see like a drastic shift in terms of the way, because of the new technologies, will the VFX pipeline evolve where certain things will become redundant, or you see something added to this? So if you can throw some light onto that, that would be great.
So basically, as I told you, we deal a lot with brands directly and also with all the directors. So there's a lot of interest in with the directors in the new tech, mostly in the virtual production pipeline. And there's a lot of inquiry. They are very interested. They want to know about it. And thankfully, because of pandemic, they had so much time to do so much research on their own. So they come up with all sort of questions and solutions to us. Like they tell us, can we do this? Is this possible on LED walls? Can we, instead of shooting on green screen, can we directly go and shoot on LED? Will it be helpful? So you see, there's a lot of interest. But now, practically, whether it is possible in India on such a large scale is a thing that we have to see. Because what is happening is when people are asking for a solution, like, okay, imagine we have an actor, so we can't take him to a location. Can we shoot him on a LED wall? And when we say, okay, it is possible, okay, can we take a low angle? Can we do this? So these things are there. So there are a lot of questions which are coming from them. And we are just trying to figure out and try and solve and tell them to see, okay, this is possible, but this is going to take time. So right now, as I told you, they are asking who's the vendors who are possible. Like as I met Hans yesterday and I was looking at the tech that they have been working on. So there is interest, but solutions is what we are looking at right now. Who's the guys who are going to provide solution for films for the VFX pipeline?
Cool. So actually, just moving on, Jayant, thanks for your input. So actually, Phil, I have an interesting thing to ask about. With this, I mean, I know you have done some of the work for Indian clients as well. So now we have new innovative solutions, whether it's motion capture or LED walls or any of these. But with these new technology enhancements, isn't the I would just put it as like, are the creative people, whether it's directors or the VFX soups, are we spoiling them in terms of giving them more options? As just Jayant said, like, okay, I want to shoot different angle. Oh, I'm giving you this. I want more of that. So how do you want to put this across?
Well, I'm going to say yes and no. So yes, we're spoiling, crews and directors and people with this amazing toy box now, where right. We have a marriage between foreground and background, which has been quite isolated in the past and then brought together in post. And so the decision-making process and the creative process is a lot more refined now. So which is a good thing. Obviously, there are huge costs at the moment with LED walls and things like this, and expectation keeps rising. As an outsource company, the kind of the more options that we've been giving people, the higher the expectation rises each time, but the costs always seem to want to stay around the same area. So it's a bittersweet pill. It's an it's very exciting to see what's going on, but at the same time, I think there you've got your bigger companies, ILM and things like that have sort of huge budgets. Companies like Centroid that don't operate with the same kind of capital, it's an interesting time for us because we have to find partners and make new allegiances so that we can kind of come together now and offer, offer these kind of combined services. We've got pipelines that are coming from different areas of the industry, from kind of sports studios with their virtual cameras and digital overlays, motion capture. We've got the games engine. So there's teething, there's been a little bit of teething trying to get everything to come together, but I think we are in a very good space now. And so I'm not sure where I really answer your question. It's definitely a good thing, but when you're on the other side of the camera and everything that's going on, that expense of keeping up with what's going on and stuff, whilst it's exciting, it's kind of it's not a worry all the time. It's just I suppose after my 25 years, and I think this is why I like the industry, I've never felt I can just sit back and relax. You've always got to be looking at what's coming next.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you absolutely answered it. It's like a toy box we have given, but you just need to make sure to set the expectation to what you're asking for and kind of educating them, or maybe making them understand. So if you can do that, probably they will definitely be understanding where they need to limit themselves. Or as you said, sometimes it's a good thing to have this kind of a tool, right? The toy box is great. It's just that we need to tell them how much to play with it.
Yeah, and some of how much it costs and things as well. Like I say, the bigger studios, they don't have the same issues as the sort of little guys.
Yeah. So moving on to Hans. So Hans, I mean, the interesting fact of, especially you work so much with tools like motion capture and stuff like that. So a perennial kind of a concern from a traditional VFX artist would be like, will they be really taking over what I'm doing on a daily basis, or is it going to replace the conventional way of we work, how we do animation, or how do compositing? So how do you want to take this particular thing forward?
I don't think any of this tech will ever replace artists. I firmly believe that we will act as a supplement to what they are doing. It will certainly change their jobs slightly, as you have noticed in your companies, as well as Shajy and all of us have noticed this. There's a slight change even from 5 years ago, certainly from 10 years ago. I think it adds, as Phil was saying, to the playground. The toolbox is larger now, and we have more toys to play with. Some are for the artists, some are for the coders, some are for the techies, some are for the directors and the art directors and so on, the VFX soups. And I think really it's a question of using what's appropriate for whichever the end product is. So if you're creating a game, well, you'll be using a lot more motion capture. If you're creating heavy VFX shots, you may use motion capture, you may not. You may need scanning, photogrammetry, you may not. It's using it the right way and making sure that, the whole pipeline is well respected all the way down, a little bit like as Shajy was saying with Jungle Book and so on. Certain elements, you still will always need live action plates probably at some point or other, certainly as a referral. And again, I come back always to the tech viz and the pre-viz, and this is actually the largest area of not of concern, but of how can I say, where we have to do the most work. Because we are asking, and I think the directors are the most impacted actually. They can choose what they want, but they have to change the way they're working completely. And that is very, very important. And it's, I'll come back to it, as I said before, it's up to us to make sure they're aware of that. But in terms of changing, how the artists are working and so on, it changes it a bit, but it will never replace. It will never, ever replace. Even if you look at the LED walls that are currently being used, worldwide, a lot of the shots cannot be used because they're not good enough. Simply, they're shooting and they're never using 100% of the shots that they're shoot in camera with the walls. They're using 50, 60%, and that's it. And that's because they're not good enough yet, and they have to go back to the old system of post rendering and so on. So there's a lot of that going on too. I hope I've answered your question.
Absolutely. I mean, as you exactly put it, like it's mostly supplementing, or kind of the best way is kind of adding value to what they're already doing.
Absolutely.
It's not really swapping what they're doing, in fact.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Hans. So actually moving on to Shajy. So I have a interesting thing about, especially with the evolving technology in terms of hardware, especially the amount of, when we talk about in the last 10 years, just the GPU powers, whether it's gone enormously. So now with that, I mean, we expected probably artists would find it more easier, but in fact, even though the GPU powers have gone up, or maybe the render capacities have gone up and the softwares have become much more smarter, but still the amount of work, the volume of work is humongous. So how do we balance this, even though with the hardware evolving and also the quality being pushed? How is the balance being struck here?
Yeah. I would like to answer this connected to your previous question or connected to what
Sure.
Hans had answered on it. I truly believe that the more you produce, the more the consumption will increase, and that will push you to create more, right? So I think all of us are from a time when we used to have one channel in Doordarshan, and that was the content all of us were forced to see, right? And then we had few liking of some of the sessions there. To that era, to the current era, where we are probably spoiled with so many channels, so many options, different varieties, and then you opt to be still unsatisfied by the collection of content you have, and you have agreed to get into the next level. That's happening in the oil industry. If you see the oil industry going through the kind of simulations happening, it has been continuously increasing. And then from the oil research, and now has gone to a different research, exploring new avenues to that. So that's where our industry also stands to be. So the more requirement comes from the consumer. So all the different audience we have, from kids to teens to they all demand for a different contents to come through. That forces all of us to innovate on technology, on creative, on production pipeline to continue to deliver that. With pandemic, for example, the work from home, which was never a norm for us, has become such a normal thing, which I personally didn't believe that we couldn't probably go more than 10% work from home. We're not built for that. In 2 months, we completely proved ourselves wrong and went through it. So that's where coming through. For example, Unreal and Unity coming up with great standard that the Unreal is available for everybody to play around. Everyone is interested on the real time engine. Hans and Path and Phil has been working very patiently from years to develop this market and need for industry filmmaking. So the availability is all there. So the everybody starts exploring on each of them. So that increases the. So if you see all the artists, they're getting very technical oriented. They're playing around with all softwares, R&D's simulation level. That increases the demand for more CPU, and that hits the NVIDIA or AMD to do innovation. If you see the roadmap of what NVIDIA and AMD are doing with their cards, they're very serious about their visualization roadmap. So the lot of industries from aerospace, automotive, oil and gas, and our industry has been forcing them to think a lot on visualization and linked to the artificial intelligence. So I'm saying there's a lot of development happening from their area. But my personal suggestion would be there will be always a capacity for us to use, be it the GPUs or be it the CPUs. But all of us, I think each studio should have a team who works on the optimization of a lot of efforts. A lot can be done if we optimize the thing, if we know what our workflows are, if we know what our final output has to be. There is a good way and there is a best way, and there's probably a bad way. So the approach which we took, the hardware, from a hardware, just to answer your question, from a hardware point of view, I think everybody is quite focused to work with the requirement and provide the solution. It's a matter of time it's been commercialized or the demand comes to that level that it becomes a substantial thing. So not sure if I answered your question, but the answer is yes.
Yeah, I think so. Are we looking? I mean, I'm just kind of won't be surprised maybe 10 years from now, or maybe sooner. In fact, like we'll be working out of the phones. I mean, we'll be producing photorealistic stuff out of your smartphones. I mean, just the way we are going. So, yeah, I mean, that's a wonderful, great thing, as you said. But yeah, we need to just see how it goes. So, but pretty exciting. So actually moving on, Jayant, so I want to bring this up about when we're talking about the emerging technologies or the awesome technologies, whether it's MPC or whether it's double negative or ILM. But when Phil actually spoke about, it's not just about those big studios which they're doing, but also about talking about to really kind of bring this together. It's very important for the other studios or other creative people to understand these technologies and really, to make this more global or appealing for everyone, we need to move into the more mid-sized or small-sized markets or studios. So how do you see that happening?
See, so as I told you, we've been very lucky to have even Phil in our studio, in our famous studio premises, which helped us to understand motion capture technology much in advance than what others would learn. So for us, when we get projects, it's easier for us to take our clients and show them the new emerging technologies that we have. In fact, last 2 months ago, we had those LED walls, which we, in collaboration with Centroid and Cineom, we had set up. So stuff like that helps a lot to show our customers what is possible. So for us, we keep on educating our customers, like this is the type of tech that is available. These things are possible. In fact, even preways and things we have been able to incorporate in our projects, which we are doing a lot now with our commercials. Our background is mostly in commercials. In commercials, there's a very short duration that we work on, say like a 30-second commercial, and we would get say 5 seconds to showcase our capabilities. But in that 5 seconds, sometimes it is so difficult to deliver something in a given time that we have. And the references that come from our clients are mostly from all big feature films and all big blockbusters. So again, as I told you, making them understand how to fit that whole tech into a smaller thing and in the given budget is what we are trying to educate, and we are trying to teach most of our clients. And I think they are understanding also. And luckily, with the tech available, we are able to even satisfy their needs also. That things are happening a lot.
That's a good thing you told, Jan, because as you just said, like when the client comes with this particular reference of probably Jungle Book or probably Avengers or something, but yeah, we know the.
See, and for them, it is very easy to just see this is the type of reference, and this is motion captures. For us, it's easier for them to just throw us words like, oh, this is motion capture, this is like virtual reality. You can do it on Unreal. My son does it on my phone and shows it to us. So at times it is so difficult. So, okay, fine, it's easy. You can shoot it on a phone. But when you really want to create something which is matching to what these guys would have spent months on doing a small thing, they don't try and understand. And again, as I said, nobody is even aware of the type of budgets that need to deliver something so photoreal, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that has been a challenge, but slowly and steadily we are managing that stuff. And as you told, hardware is also helping us a lot in making things possible. Earlier, like we used to have a lot of render farms. It used to take us days to render a simple mobile phone. Today, instantly with GPU rendering, we can just see and showcase what's possible to the client. So that is an amazing thing which has happened, and hardware is helping us a lot in delivering interesting visuals.
Great. Thanks, Jan. They're good to know that. I mean, we are able to give solutions to, especially when you brought up commercials, so which generally come with a very constrained budget, but still want to, do a good, awesome work. So I think.
See, and also another thing is the volume. See, the thing is, in a feature film, there would be like 100 or 200 feature films. But in commercials, in India being such a big market, there are a lot of commercials. Every day there are commercials being shot, and every commercial has to look different from the other commercial which is playing in the whole timeline. So for us, in fact, it becomes more challenging to have a small piece, like 3 seconds of glory, where you see something and then people say, wow, this is amazing. This is something like that. So that is a very interesting as well as challenging part for us.
Cool.
I can so relate to the similar conversation, Jayant, in our production floor. So it's very.
So the thing is, every day it's like a solution. Like we have a long script with a nice reference, with a nice YouTube link, showcasing a nice effect. Okay, this is what we need to do, and we have to deliver in 5 days, and this is the budget. Now you figure out. You guys are the creative.
Phil, you want to please add something in here? You're on mute. Phil, you're on mute.
Just to echo something that Jayant said then, the commercials market, our experience of it was what we came to Mumbai initially looking to become more involved in, because we actually felt that some of the pipelines in commercials and advertising in India were more developed than some of the film pipelines were. This is 5 to 10 years ago, and our first job was working on a Bajaj commercial, which was about 10 years ago. So really, yeah, I just wanted to echo the point that I think where Jayant says commercials can be a showcase for your technology because you haven't got to spend millions and millions and millions to do it. So yeah. And that's part of the reason that Centroid came to Mumbai in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's also interesting that a lot of the commercials out of North America, certainly, they take more risks. They're not on air for that long. In North America, they do have a lot of money, you know, as we all know, and it's a little bit like Formula One is you know, 4 or 5 years after Formula One has developed something, it ends up being in road cars, production vehicles. It's a little bit like that. The commercial world will test something out before the film world, possibly. Same now goes for gaming, actually. The gaming teams at EA, Ubisoft, and Worldwide have done a lot of exciting stuff, which has brought, you know, Unreal to a certain level also, with their contributions to the virtual world and real-time rendering and Unity and so on. So I think it's interesting that Jayant mentioned that, because it is very, very true. The commercial world has pushed, you know, the technology in a certain degree.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'll just want to, as we are just coming to the close of the session, so this is probably the last round of questions that I'm going to put in there. So Phil, I just wanted to ask you, like, now we are in exciting times. So, but just for us to understand, so how do you see the technology? I mean, the way, the pace we are going. Like, if I have to say, like 10 years from now, what is the kind of, I mean, can we just visualize what we're going to see? I mean, how technology is going to push the making, I mean, purely of visual effects, whether it's commercials or movies or any content for that matter. How do you comprehend seeing the journey from the last 20 years, and how do you see the next 10 years, how it's going to be?
I mean, that's a brilliant question. I come from a time when I first started working in motion capture, you couldn't even see a marker set working live in real time on a performance. So to have come from that to where we are now, where you're seeing all these things in real time in games engine, and I'm almost dumbfounded at how far it's come so quickly in the last 5 years, really. So where it's going to be in 10 years' time, I mean, this is such a good renaissance for us. One thing I hope things like LED walls and stuff in 5 years' time are going to be a lot more economical to buy. And I hope the price of technology is going to come down, which it tends to. But to try and answer your question rather than dodge it, you know, I think there's exciting things. I've always been interested in the sort of the holographic area of performance and theatre and filmmaking as well. So I hope this is really an educated answer. I hope that's going to be more prevalent in what we're doing, because I see there's great opportunities. We've had Royal Shakespeare Company and people over here starting to use tech in that area. I really hope that facial animation becomes a more simple process in the next 5 to 10 years as well. I mean, it's getting better, the use of head-mounted cameras and with photogrammetry and things like that, but it's still a pretty exhaustive process. So I really hope that area of certainly my part of the industry improves. And I mean, the cameras from, you know, NCAMs, what Jayant said they were doing with Cineum, this has got a huge future. You know, as I said earlier, the ability to be able to marry background and foreground, you know, and remove this kind of Frankenstein process where lots of things are being pulled together to make one being. Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where that magic make my film button will exist and you can just push it, because I think the more we achieve, the more questions that are going to get asked, and the more the expectations are going to rise, and you'll find that timelines will probably be pushed to get quicker and quicker and quicker. So, you know, I think the film industry is always going to kind of work with this pressure no matter what it achieves, there's always going to be, right, more pressure, more pressure. Can we turn out, 2 movies a year rather than 1 and stuff, which I think is a shame. I don't want to start getting political either about it. But I think what we're seeing now is the basis of what the next 20 years of filmmaking is gonna be working around and developing, really.
Cool. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's great perspective you're given, but pretty disappointed that we are not going to find the awesome, make it awesome button in the next 10 years.
Yeah, that one button my clients keep pushing me for.
Yeah, just one button. I would just want to press it. So Hans,
that'll be the most expensive button ever made.
So
I think what will play a huge role moving forward will be the use of machine vision and AI. Already we're starting to see little tiny glimpses of it with facial capture. We've seen it, in a form of AI in terms of even cleanup for motion capture, predicting where the marker will be, half a second or a second later and so on. Very basic. But I think moving forward, AI will play a huge role in the type of work we are doing, the very specific work with photogrammetry and motion capture and facial capture and all of these things. Especially, I think in facial capture, it'll happen sooner than we think, maybe even. So I very much look forward to that. Also, there's a whole aspect of volumetric capture we haven't even touched on, but that's a whole other area we can discuss some other time maybe. But again, AI will play a huge role in that. Pipeline management, I mean, Shajy can certainly talk about pipeline algorithms and so on. As you well know at DD as well, there's massive amounts of investment in that. And again, AI will eventually play a huge role in that, I'm sure, too. So I think moving forward, we'll see a lot more very interesting coding entering our systems and our pipelines, which will make it very interesting, because then we'll deliver things much faster, and then the creatives will have these things to play with.
Great. Yeah, just extending this question to Shajy as well. So it's a great point Hans has talked about is AI. So how much of you see this in the future, where probably with a lot of things which could be currently a little automated, but semi-automated is what it, like, especially render management or integrated pipelines. How much of that shift will move on to AI as well? I mean, is there something you want to throw a light on that?
AI, I would say the current focus from a lot of studios and a lot of software vendors, they are still evaluating the high possibilities of AI. AI can definitely, where most of the efforts are going on is to find out the manual interference. For example, roto is something, a fast roto is something which is there in the plate to everybody. So wherever the faster thing is there, or volumetric analysis, for example, AI can definitely play a large role on that. The production analysis, the knowing the challenge of our dynamic change in the creative requirement, production workflows, and also AI does play a lot of more of an ML than AI, but a lot of efforts are going that way. But we still don't have a clear answer of where AI can play a massive impact on any of that area.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think it'll be pretty amazing that the AI will have definitely a great role to play in the next few years. Just need to see how it pans out. So Jayant, I mean, just to put in this same thing on, how do you see the future of, I mean, how the technology is going to pan out in the next, you want it to pan out as Phil said, what are the things you want?
See, frankly, I'm very excited about 2 things. One is AI, as Hans said, and I have already started seeing a lot of these software guys introducing it. Like a simple thing like a Photoshop has introduced as neural filters. They're amazing, and like having such powerful tools on the basic software, it gives us so much power for all the creatives to do outstanding stuff. So AI is something which I think is changing a lot, and it is going to help all the creative guys in a bigger way. And the other thing is Unreal Engine or Game Engine, the real-time rendering. That is another thing which just will change everything. Because I have seen few results, and we have been experimenting a lot with Unreal on few of the projects, and it just blows away looking at the results that we have been seeing. Like, it just saves so much of the time. Like days work could happen, like 10 days work could happen in 2 days or 3 days, because how that much fast that is. You could just import like a model inside, which earlier used to we need to convert and do a lot of technical things, but things have become much easier with these tools, and I think this could help a lot to all the creatives in future. So AI and real-time rendering is what I'm looking forward.
Sure, thanks. So yeah, thanks, Jayant. So I think we are just coming to the end of this. Anybody wants to have the closing points? Any of the panelists, it would be great if you want to just share any closing points that you would like to bring in. Shajy, anything?
Yeah, maybe I can start a very small one. So I seriously think, and I seriously do hope that in a few years we generate, or we probably make a very collaborative ecosystem around. So that with production houses, with content creators, and partners for virtual capture, Unreal. I think that that's a very need for India. So I have a very collaborative thing, and each of us becoming very strong in our respective areas, and we all collaborate and work together. That's the best thing. Other two things which AI R&D is very much required there, and the network also plays a big role. So in all our sessions, be it the government or any collaborative session, we keep telling them that network is a big bottleneck here, and that actually stops all of us to collaborate and work with a lot of solution providers, which do exist in various departments.
Yeah, thanks, Shajy. So Phil, Hans, anything you would like to bring as a closing note?
Just to carry on really from what Sanjay said there, which I agree wholeheartedly. I kind of hope in the future the foundations of our industry in terms of education, I think these are going to really need to develop. And this, I'm not just saying this in India, I mean, this is around the world really at the moment. I think this is one of the times where industry is almost leading education rather than it being the reverse. So yeah, I'm excited to see how that's going to develop over the next 10 years. An industry is going to have to support it. But I think if education and industry can start working tighter and tighter, I think the world is going to be a better and easier place for all of us when it comes to filmmaking.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think that's an interesting point that you brought up. I think research and education has to drive it rather than the other way around. So definitely that's how we should look forward to. Hans, anything from your end?
Yeah, I just feel that the technology is moving so very fast now. I come back to what I said earlier. I think it's our responsibility as the torchbearers of this new technology into our industry here in India to really be sure that and it has to do with education, but in a different sense, is that we educate the producers who hold the purse strings for these big films here in India and the TV shows and all the endless amount of serials and made for television movies for Netflix and Amazon and Disney and so on. It's up to us to make sure that this technology is properly used and that they want to use it, and it's not forcing them to use it. I think that's very, very important, and that's really up to us because it will help them. It will save money for these productions. Certainly, if it's done the right way, proper tech viz is so incredibly important, and it's often overlooked, very, very often overlooked. And I think that's a whole other conversation we can have. But I think it's extremely important. And the other thing is that everyone here in India has access to content from all over the planet, obviously. And companies like yourselves and Technicolor and so on are working on all of this content already. But it's not necessarily always being produced here in India. So I think that in order to make that available here, we're going to have to, climb that hill slowly. And I think we'll reach it. And I think the AI stuff is interesting moving forward. And education in terms of how we work with the creatives and the production teams and the producers is very, very important moving forward.
Great, thanks. So as we are almost actually out of time, so thank you all for joining in. Thanks for great inputs. It's a great hour that we had. Thanks to Animation Express and Anil Banwari and his team for putting this together and making this a wonderful event. And hope to see you all down the lane. Hope you all had a great time.